Yo, 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 yo. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a not quite final edition of Wos Speaks. I know we promoted it on Twitter as the last episode. It's not, but I do want to give you guys some programming notes. Wos Speaks, as we know it in its current iteration, is over. However, meaning I'm not going to be doing this every single week. We're changing things internally at CTD, basically to just try to optimize our content for the people who love what we do. So I won't be doing this. I'll be doing some other CTD stuff more regularly, but I won't be doing this on a weekly basis. But, elections, Alex Jones seemed to think Trump is on the verge of death. If Donald Trump dies, best believe we're going live and having a Wos Speaks to talk about the implications of that. But yeah, we're just not going to be doing this regularly on a weekly basis. So it is an end of an era, so to speak. Of course, you guys know how this show even started. We founded the show Woke Bros with my brother Michael Brooks, rest in peace. We brought Nando on. Nando continued on with us, whatever. It's a proud tradition that we got up here that we're super proud of. But however, we're not going to be doing this in the capacity that we do it right now, week to week. It's going to be on a more like something major, super important happens. We'll get up here, try to break it down as best we can for you guys. But, I know that's a little sad or whatever for people who love what we do up here. However, as a treat, we do have a very special guest today. He's the co-host of American Prestige. He is a professor at UW out in Seattle. He's a Quincy Institute fellow. He's a father, a husband. He's my boy, Danny Bessner. Welcome to the show. You're muted, DB. Not that you got to unmute yourself on this thing.
Yeah, no, I got this. We have the same mic, and
I hit
it all the time.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Of course,
really glad. Happy to be on. I know this transitional period.
Yes,
not the end of an era. Every new beginning is some other beginning's end.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just the cycle, the circle of life. Exactly. Lion King, baby. Listen, man. So it's not just that. You're my boy. I talk to you damn near every single day, but also like I'm literally a huge fan of your work, all of its incarnations, your writing, your podcast. And recently, man, I was flying back to LA for the first time in 6 weeks. And I was on a Delta flight listening to your talk on American Prestige, which if you like this show and you want to be informed specifically on what's going on abroad in American foreign policy, you need to be subscribed to American Prestige. Like, not even like it's mandatory, guys. Y'all need to be locked into that. And you had Glenn Lowry up there, and I always tell people, like, when it comes to my friends and their significant others, what is it that sells you on somebody? Like, whenever I can tell that my friend's significant other kind of sees the same things in my friend that I do, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, this is like a thing. I could tell Glenn Lowry is tickled by the exact same things about you that I am. And I was like, yo, Glenn Lowry is so fucking locked in. He's a conservative. And that was the ill thing about your episode, DB. He's kind of like interrogating his own ideology and how he feels about the world in his 70s. Like, he came up in the 80s as this black conservative economist, economics thinker, and he hated the welfare state and all this other stuff. All kinds of crazy people call him Uncle Tom, this, that, and the third. And he's like in his 70s now, and he's like reinterrogating the things that he cares about and why he cares about them. And you guys were kind of, I guess, unpacking this shit live on your show. And I just thought that was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, he's a smart guy, and he's someone who's constantly changing himself. I actually think that a lot of his sort of development comes from the fact that he's around a lot of libs and he finds them annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And in a world where there wasn't a left, there's not that many ways to go when you sort of identify the hypocrisy of liberalism. Bill Maher, I think, is also someone who used to be like that as well, even though I think Bill Maher's changed a bit more recently. I think he's become more genuinely conservative. But I think Glenn Loury is kind of reacting to what's around him. And now the fact that there's kind of a left that's able to articulate itself, there's some intriguing things there that I think.
Yeah, and another conversation of yours that I listened to, you recently did Hassan Piker's Twitch show live. I watched it on YouTube. I thought that conversation was just incredible, of you just kind of explaining the intellectual groundwork that's been done and what informs the United States government's approach to foreign policy. And it's like, what I thought was so dope about what you explained is like these ideas took shape 40, 30, 50 years ago. And because we live in a gerontocracy, like these people have not evolved the way that they view the world and the United States' place within it. And I think it explains a lot of what we see in terms of America's foreign policy.
Absolutely. I think that's true. And I think the point about gerontocracy is really crucial. I mean, just to get right into it, when you're talking about Israel, I think that of all of the issues that are circulating in American politics right now, Israel is the one that is really divided along generational lines, over 45 and younger than 45, broadly speaking, not totally, but broadly speaking. And one of the reasons that so many of the people in both parties supported is because they were politicized in a very different era. I mean, they had a different understanding of Israel, what Israel was in the 1960s and 1970s, even though it did rely on dispossession of Palestinian people. The Holocaust is not that much longer beforehand. The United States was not always as supportive of Israel as it became, particularly in the 1990s and beyond. And so they had an idea of Israel as sort of this plucky upstart state that these amazing people created in the wake of the Holocaust. Obviously, what you and I think about Israel today is very different. You see basically massively armed nuclear.
They're not an underdog. They're not
by any stretch of the imagination.
They're not the
an
little
underdog.
engine that could. They're a global power. They're at the very least, they're a regional power. Like
regional dominant.
The regional power.
Which is crazy, but yeah, and partially because they're backed by the United States, partially because they developed nuclear weapons, and they're sort of an adjunct of the empire. And so when we see Israelis annihilating Gazans, genocide in Gaza, apartheid in the West Bank, we have a very different relationship to it than a Joe Biden, or even to some degree a Bernie Sanders. I think it took Bernie a little while to get on the right train. And that's because he was politicized. He's a post-Holocaust Jew. Yeah, and I think that's a very different relationship to Israel than something like that you and I have. So yeah, I think it's totally related to gerontocracy.
So, and the reason why it's important to me is because, again, like I have like a couple of Jews in my life who are like broadly just in support of Israel's, domination of their area. Like, this is what major powers do. It's kind of like almost like a real politique. Like what you said when you were talking to Glenn Loury, like there's almost a naivete that they would do anything else, that they have to do this. Like it kind of sucks. It's almost like break a few eggs to make an omelet. I know that sounds crude and all of that, but like that's kind of the attitude. It's not that it's not horrible what they're doing, but this is kind of the messy business of nation building and what it means to like secure yourself for generations or whatever. And I don't really feel like getting into that because I think it's something we disagree with them on. We think they're wrong. Like, I don't need to get into that. What I want to more get into is kind of explain why Joe Biden and them and Bernie Sanders and them have why it's hard for them to see Israel the way that we do. Like, what are the truths? Like the actual empirical truths that because they're not maniacs for thinking this. Like, I think it's easy to say like, oh, these people have gone crazy, right? Like they're brain dead now. They don't know what the hell's happening with them. But it's so many fucking people that like see Israel this way. Like, can you explain to people like the sort of, and we don't got to go too deep, but like the sort of idea, like the what undergirds these ideas?
Well, I mean, to some degree, it's imagined as the bastion of Western civilization in a region that's historically defined as barbaric. Obviously, one of the major foundations of Western society, and this is a scholar named Edward Said, developed this notion called Orientalism. And so you can't have a West, Wos, obviously, without an East. And so the East is actually really crucial to the formation of what we call Western identity and Western civilization, because you contrapose yourself to it. The West is what the East is not, to some degree. And so when and of course the most eastern part of the East is the Middle East. Because it was the site of the Islamic conquests, and Islam and Christianity, even though they were both monotheistic religions, they both essentially displaced polytheism in most of the world.
But
in most of the world. So
not in Asia, but
not in Asia, not in parts of Africa. You know, it's not totally. Asia and Africa are, you know, almost bracketed for most of our identity as a quote unquote not really being civilization. I mean, the fact that you refer to like the famous Africa is not a country, right? But you just refer to all of Africa. Asia was oftentimes referred to as that, less so more recently with particularly China, Korea, and Japan. But throughout the 19th century, when a lot of things were getting formed, there was like Asia and Africa, and they were kind of not really part of the story. But the Middle East was part of the story because there were these serious Islamic conquests as recently as the Middle Ages, you know, the reconquest. Okay. But anyway, so it's imagined as this really important space, and Israel is imagined as sort of a bastion of Western civilization in this space that is othered by Western societies. And so there's this attachment to this Western notion. Now, there is an irony here because, of course, one of the other quote unquote others that helped make Western modernity, particularly Christian modernity, was the Jew, right? The Christian was always counterposed to the Jew. And so you have this ironic thing where Jewish people in the wake of the Holocaust are only fully welcomed into Western Christian society by mirroring.
After they're banished.
After they're banished. After, I mean, Hitler killed most of Europe. I mean, Europe is not totally Judenfrei, free of Jews, but it's pretty much Judenfrei, free of Jews. So you have this ironic situation where the Jews are finally welcomed in fully into Western society, one, after their annihilation, and two, they start doing settler colonial things where they start dispossessing people and reenacting the experience of colonial modernity, which happened in the United States, which happened in Latin America, in the Middle East. And so there's this like deep stuff. That's like tectonic plate attachment to it. And then if you want, there's more proximate reasons for why people, so very quickly, obviously, the United States wants to be hegemonic in all world regions. The Middle East is historically very important for oil, even though we don't get most of our oil from the Middle East. Most of it actually goes to Europe, but it's still historically important.
We have our own oil here.
We have our own oil here. We get it from Latin America. We get it from a lot of different places. It was more important historically than it has become. There's also the United States has been in a Cold War with Iran for, since 1979, and the Ayatollah overthrew the U.S.-backed Shah. The United States also views the Middle East as a place to dispossess other potential powers like Russia and China. They don't want them getting involved in the Middle East, so the United States has to be there. And Israel contributes to all of those efforts. And then, of course, you have just the quote-unquote Israel lobby. The way that I think about it is that the Israel lobby has two main parts. There's the Jewish lobby, and then there's the Christian Zionist lobby. The Jewish lobby historically attached more to the Democratic Party, and the Christian Zionist lobby historically attached more to the Republican Party. Though recently there has been, I think, some move from the Jewish Israel lobby over to the Republican Party. And I just want to emphasize one thing. This is not kind of conspiratorial. There's lots of different ethnic groups that affect U.S. foreign policy. The other two big ones, there's a Cuban lobby, which is from Florida, which shapes U.S. foreign policy toward Cuba. And there's also famously a Midwestern Eastern European lobby, which is one of the reasons that Bill Clinton got involved in Eastern Europe, was he wanted to win Eastern European votes in the Midwest, Polish votes in the Midwest in 1996. So it's not conspiratorial to say that there's a pro-Israel Jewish lobby. It's
the freaking Saudis have a very powerful lobby out here. Like there's all kinds of interests that are affecting U.S. government
ethnic
policy.
Interests. So that's another major reason.
Exactly.
And like, we're from New York, right? I mean, it's a fucking ethnic society.
Yes.
You have the Irish cops, you have the Italians, you have the Jews, you have the Haitians, you have the Puerto Ricans. These are all ethnic blocks that shape politics. And something similar happens at the national level. It's not racist. It's not conspiratorial. It's just true. And Israel's related to that.
Yeah, I think what people would, because for me, and I feel like I'm Theo Vaughn talking to Donald Trump or somebody right now, like somebody really because I'm always thinking about the conversations that I have, right? I always think about the conversations that I'm having with people who aren't as nerded out on politics as you or I are, but they're just trying to understand what's happening, right? And it's like everything just feels like a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wait, like, how could anybody, specifically, because, you know, let's face it, everybody I know is freaking liberal. And so they're thinking about the Democrats. It's like
not many conservatives over at the Ringer.
No, well, it's not even just that. It's like people in my own social circles, like white collar Negroes. Like, no, they're not Republican.
The black bourgeoisie,
exactly,
of Los Angeles.
They're just not. And New York as well. They're just not Republican. They're still
the two
liberals.
major cities.
And like for them, they can't square that it's a no-brainer that Democrats specifically, because like I think there's a sort of idea that Republican politicians are like irredeemable, which is probably true. They're not part of our project. Like, why should we think that we could influence them? There seems to be like it feels like it should be a no-brainer that Democrats specifically, who claim to care about humanitarian stuff and, you know, all the shit that Democrat, like caring about people, like that's kind of the brand. It's like this idea of empathy and like we like have a heart and we have a conscience and like, you know, Hawk Jeffries and Chuck Schumer and like and those are the most corporatized, absurd Democrats. Like they're almost cartoonish in their villainy, in their like their corporate ethos, but like it's not. It's like 95% of people in Congress, Democrats in Congress, are in support of this. Like how? Like even now, 2 years into this, like how do you explain to people why they're still so scared, or maybe they're just true believers? Like why are they still doing this 2 years into this when it's so obvious?
I think both are true. I think people genuinely believe in it. I don't think everyone's cynical. There's some cynicism around it. But I think it's also these institutional things. And I think it's literally decades of power. And Washington's not exactly a place where there are quick shifts in culture or quick shifts in how people think about what it means to do politics in the modern United States. I mean, plus add to the gerontocracy thing. And I think those all combine to make it very difficult to imagine that a Democratic political leader could, for example, go against the AIPAC line, because AIPAC has been very influential in Democratic Party politics for a very long time. Now it's really both parties. And I think there's this belief that you just can't do it, that it's breaking a rule of politics, and they'll primary you. And they sometimes do primary you, and there's sometimes effective political challenges. But I think that when the baby boomer generation fades away from the scene, when they literally die, you're going to have a relatively quick shift. And I don't think that the Israeli government has prepared for that. I think this is going to be, I think a lot of people under 45 just think what Israel is doing is disgusting, and they don't want the United States to support it in any way, shape, or form. And just to be clear, the United States did not always give Israel a blank check. As recently as the 1980s, Ronald Reagan told Israeli leaders to cut it out, for example, with regards to Lebanon. During the Suez Crisis of 1956, Dwight D. Eisenhower told Israel, as well as France and the United Kingdom, to cut it out. It's only really been since the 1990s and the end of the Cold War and the era of U.S. hyperpower, is what historians call it, that there's been this like bear hug. But I think that's a unique period in history, and it's going to be bookended by the peace process with Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat on one hand, and then the annihilation of Gaza on the other. I think we're going to be entering a new period in U.S.-Israeli relations going forward.
So I'm going to get to that. Just a couple of things. Like one, I think like you said, just it wasn't that long ago, it was the 1980s. Like I think for people like us, the 1980s seems recent because like Sylvester Stallone and, you know, like these Donald Trump, like these creatures of the 1980s were formative in our sort of pop cultural upbringing. And the 80s feels tangible. It feels like we could reach out and touch it, but like that was 40 years ago. Like the Soviet Union ended 30 years ago. That's a long time to be carrying on business one type of way, right? And like in a certain extent, I understand how these things kind of get calcified and just get taken for granted, even though, again, if you just look at it, it just looks disgusting on the news. One of the things that comes to mind for me often when I'm like watching these conversations or reading the fucking ghouls in the New York Times or whatever, I'm just like, guys, like there were recent wars, right? Like the two recent wars that come to my mind are what the Saudis were doing in Yemen when they were trying to kill the Houthis, which they failed at, by the way. But it was kind of similar to this. They were just leveling the fucking place every single day with air power, and people spoke out against it. I remember specifically Bernie Sanders was like, yo, I'm drafting a bill like we shouldn't be giving the rich ass Saudis money to do this, or we should stop giving weapons to them. This is cruel. This is inhumane. Like, look at all the people that's been displaced. Look at the refugee crisis in Europe. Look, like this notion that a lot of like the pro Israel people say you're just mad about it because it's the Jews. It's like, no, that's not true. Like the Saudis did something similar and people were up in arms. Everybody thought this was crazy. And I don't like there wasn't a sense also that America, even though they were giving them all kinds of intelligence support and they were supporting what they were trying to do in Yemen, but like there wasn't this feeling that America was walking hand in hand with the Saudis in this devastation of Yemen and those people over there, where it is right now. And another thing that I would say is like we fought wars against people we called insurgents in Iraq and in Afghanistan. We didn't do a blockade. We didn't level the entire country. We did like targeted strikes, like building by building. We put our own troops in harm's way to do this in a more humane fashion. That's another. It's like this idea that this is just what war is. Like, you know, I know you watch Adam Friedland, Richie Torres, and he's with a smug, stupid ass face, and he's like, "Yeah, war is ugly." I'm like, bro, this is not what people do in wars.
Yeah, it's not a war.
Like a category of something completely different.
Yeah, it's an annihilation. It's an annihilation of a civilian population, a forced starvation of a civilian population.
No, and just to put a fight, could you explain to people what, like why this is like actually different? It's like,
yeah, so
there's a very different feeling to this.
It's collective punishment is the way to think about it. That even if you say that you want to go after Hamas, you're not allowed either. I mean, morally, but even forget morals according to international law, or even one might say according to effective military operations, to basically just kill everyone. That's not a legitimate or useful or effective way to win a battle or to win a war. If the goal is to end Hamas, I mean, the way you would actually do it is give Palestine a state and stop creating further recruits for radical organizations like Hamas that hate Israel or hate the United States. Because they're engaging in collective punishment. They're murdering children, they're murdering innocents, they're murdering non-soldiers, all in the name of a political military goal, which is going to be impossible to achieve. That's just a different category. It's not you're facing off against the German army or the Italian army during World War I or World War II. You're literally—
You're not even facing off against the Taliban.
No, the Taliban is soldiers, right? I mean, they're
an actual
military
fighting force.
Yeah, it's like if people just came in and bombed Los Angeles because there was a radical group within Los Angeles and they were trying to destroy that group. It's just total collective punishment. It's totally illegal and totally immoral. That's not a war. That's not armed combatants fighting each other. You know, it's not even trying to put out a guerrilla warfare or an insurgency. It's just the destruction of a civilian population through collective punishment.
So then that begs the question. Category. So then that begs the question as to why. And I listened to enough American Prestige, and it's obvious what they want to do is ethnically cleanse the population, and basically take it over. And like, you know, I watch a lot, like Richie Torres is on with Friedland and he's talking about like, oh, What the fuck did he say? Oh, he's for a two-state
Oh
solution
God. Yeah.
and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, on what planet is this guy living on? How? And I've always wondered, like, yeah, like, why can't they just do this, right? Like, there's this idea that the Israelis can't be forced. They can't possibly be asked to live next to the Palestinians. I'm like, why? Like, I mean, like, what the Germans and the French
an
did it.
State, right? Well, so they can't allow Palestinians to be citizens of Israel or enough, because that would make it a non-Jewish.
Then it wouldn't be Jewish in its
Yeah,
character.
it's an ethno state, right? It's
right.
It literally I could move. Well, I don't know if I would be now. I've been pretty critical, but in theory, I can move to Israel because I'm Jewish, according to halacha, which is Jewish or Jewish law. It's not oral any longer; it's written, but Jewish law, where someone whose family was displaced in 1948 or 1967 or 2003, whatever it may be, cannot return to Israel because they're not Jewish. So it's an ethno-national character. Now, why can't there be a two-state solution? I think just because Israel doesn't actually want that. This is
because if they had a state, they couldn't move them out. Is that the idea?
Well, they wanted to create. I mean, like Likud, the Benjamin Netanyahu's party, and Israel's basically now a right-wing country. There is no left really to speak of.
Yeah.
There was a settler left and a Labor Party for a long time now. You have a Labor Party that was also in favor of dispossession of Palestine, but that's a longer history. But whatever, the people who've been ruling Israel now for a long time, they just want Greater Israel. They want to occupy and settle the West Bank and Gaza. That is what the political goal is. So if that's what your
if there's a state there, that makes it harder.
No, you can't do it. It's like a state, right?
Exactly.
And when people say, like, oh, the Palestinians had a chance for a state, not really. They were never given real sovereignty. Like, what's real sovereignty? You control your borders and you have a military.
Yeah.
That was never going to be allowed. So it was never going to be a real state in the way that people normally mean that, because it's just not part of the Israeli political project. They just don't want it, right? Like, why did the Americans put all the native people on reservations? Because they wanted their land. They didn't want to live in peace and harmony with them. Why does this always happen in settler colonialism? Because the project is to settle and colonize. It's not to live alongside people. And it's
what you would say that's always been the case.
So for Israel, I think there were moments in the 20th century that people did want to have some sort of dual sovereignty type position. But I think for the last 30 years, that's been less and less true. Israel has become more and more attached to the Likud, the right-wing party's project of Greater Israel. And that's been true basically for our entire conscious lives.
Is Greater Israel what the adventures that they're doing in Lebanon and Syria? Is that like
that's
Israel
related
project too?
I think that's more related to the idea if you just have every other nation be destabilized and therefore they can't do anything to you. But even more important, they can't really do anything right now. But that allows you to be the most powerful nation in the region. I think that's related to that. But the Golan, the West Bank, and Gaza, those are all part of the Greater Israel project. I mean, and if you look at it even grander, there are people who want to be on the east side of the West Bank, like what is now Jordan.
They're coming for Jordan too?
Well, no, I don't think they are. I don't think that's practical. But like, if you look at ancient maps of Judea and Sumeria, which is like these were these two ancient kingdoms that are imagined to be the precursors to the modern state of Israel, Judea in the south, Judea and Samaria in the north. Those were larger territories, and those are generally imagined to be the spaces that at its most extreme a Greater Israel would encompass, and that's on both sides of the West Bank,
so
both sides of Jordan River.
Here's another thing that I wonder about. Like, obviously we know what the goal is, and I guess prior to October 7th they probably just thought they'd just do this inch by inch. But then October 7th happens. It's like, damn, this is an opportunity to just kind of do this right now. That's what it feels like. I don't know. I can't get into the head of Benjamin Netanyahu and like his buddies in the Likud. But like, it feels like, the plan was just, we're going to settle the West Bank inch by inch and then slowly phase these motherfuckers out. And then we'll do the same thing in Gaza and whatever. But like, now that they're trying to do a full-fledged, just straight up population removal, what are the actual mechanisms to achieve this? Like, how do they go in and do? Can the army just go in and remove 500,000 people from what we now call Gaza?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the classic things that you've seen over the course of the 20th century. You make it terrible to live there, and then you go in and you concentrate people in camps, and then you force them to go elsewhere. I mean, it's simple as that. I don't think you're going to see the type of death camp that you saw during the Holocaust, where you literally just send people to gas chambers or you put them in trucks. And you gas them in trucks. That the Holocaust basically very quickly has two stages, roughly from 1939 to 1942, 3, 1, 2, 3, 41, 42, 43. There's a lot of stuff in you line people up and you machine gun them and they fall into a ditch, or you put them in trucks and you gas them. And then as the World War II goes on, you get the famous death camps in Auschwitz is the most famous example where it's mass production of death. I don't think that's going to be happening. You're going to get something we've already seen more similar to what the United States did with regards to Tokyo, where it's just massive aerial bombardment and just kind of annihilates an entire space. That's what's happening now. And then you concentrate people and you force them out. You transport them elsewhere, and thereby you make it, free.
How long do you think this will take?
It's tough to know. I mean, you could do it quickly. It's not impossible to imagine it doing relatively quickly. Probably several months. It would take I think what they would ideally want is another nation to quote unquote accept.
Yeah, who's doing that refugees. Though?
I mean, no nation wants to. Egypt doesn't exactly want to. No other nation in the region really.
Like the Jordanians can't do it. Like they can't do it. Like they literally can't take in 200,000 homeless people.
No.
And neither can the Egyptians. So like they'd have to like put them on ships or something.
Yeah, you'd have to transport them. And historically, think about when the United States did it with its native population. In 1830, you have the Indian Removal Act. If I'm recalling correctly, Andrew Jackson specifically defies the Supreme Court during that act. And he basically it's a Trail of Tears, right? Forcibly relocates native peoples. That's what you do. You force them to leave their space and go somewhere else. That's what ethnic cleansing is.
So I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm inspired by my brother Adam Friedland, and his
yeah, he did a great job.
His chat with Ricky Torres, cause like when I listen to what you're talking about on your show, Danny, you're basically explaining to people the why, the justification, the historical precedents, like you're breaking it down in almost academic sense, right? Like so people can understand the facts, but like you rarely talk about like how this shit like makes you feel, as a Jewish American homie who was like raised to be a Zionist. Like that's who you were supposed to be down with this. Shit, man, you should be in Israel right now, DB.
The dream. Yeah, I mean, very typical post-Holocaust Jewish education. The map of Israel didn't even include the West Bank and Gaza that would hang up in classrooms or at the synagogue. But I think like pretty quickly, once you learn what I think similar thing with Adam, once you see what's going on, if you go to Israel, I've been to Israel twice, not in 20 years, but I've been to Israel. And once you just learn about what.
So it was like way better for them back then in 2005.
Well, it was like the second Intifada. I was actually in Israel during the second Intifada. Wow. I think the summer of 2001 was the last time I was there, right before 9/11. But you see what's going on, and they're very clearly second-class citizens within Israel. They get different types of funding and things along those lines. And then you learn about what the occupation actually entails in Gaza and the West Bank. The famous thing that people point to is there are highways that only Israelis could drive on, right? What does that sound like? In Gaza, even though there was the withdrawal of Israeli forces in the mid-2000s, still it wasn't truly sovereign. The Israeli government just controlled all the borders and the crossing points. So once you learn what's going on there, you're like, oh wait, I'm a liberal Jew. This doesn't seem to be very liberal or democratic. I'm supposed to be in favor of liberal democracy, and Israel's a liberal democracy, right? And I think once the scales start falling from your eyes, which I believe is a New Testament reference, you could kind of see what's going on there for real.
Yeah, and I remember like 2 years ago, right after the attacks, you were like, bruh, like you kind of predicted that this is what was gonna come of this. Like they're gonna do a siege and it's gonna be bloodshed on a level that's never been seen before. Is it not worse than you thought? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, because you never could really imagine it, but like this is what right-wing
And why did you
Israelis
think that? Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
they've been saying this. You know, this is what's so, it's not funny, haha, but it's like, it's not like I've done some deep excavation. They literally say this is what they want. I mean, if you go to Israel, I remember this in 2001. There was like a group of people that were trying to rebuild the menorah from the ancient temple, with the notion that, you know, they would destroy the Dome of the Rock, rebuild the ancient temple of Israel, and bring all those glories down to earth. I mean, this isn't like deep reportage. They've said what they want to do, and this October 7th provided them with an opportunity to do it. That's just true, and it was obvious from the beginning, and I said it from the beginning.
So, and this will be my last thing, because this is another thing that comes to my mind all the time when I'm just like, I'm just trying to understand, because certain things sound crazy to me, but I just want to understand how it could come out of somebody's mouth, right? Like, you know, a Jewish person in America, okay, living in Beverly Hills, living in Encino, living in Sherman Oaks, living on the Upper West Side, living in Park Slope, Brooklyn, explaining to me that they have to do this, the Israelis have to do this, or else no Jew can be safe in the entire world. Or like when Sheryl Sandberg, one of the richest women on planet Earth, mind you, okay, individually rich and powerful people in our country. Like, this lady is crazy rich, crazy powerful. She turns to her friend when she finds out about October 7th while she's in New York and says, "Oh my God, would you hide me?"
And it's ridiculous. Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, right?
It's ridiculous, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
It's post-Holocaust, basically. That's, I mean,
like, can you explain that? Because for me, it's like, okay, there's gonna one day be a time here in America where we're rounding up our Jewish citizens.
Yeah, boss, you know what I always say? I don't think I'm even sure I'd ever said this in public, but since this is the last episode of Wos Speaks, I'll say it. The role that the Jews played in Europe are played by Black people in the United States, right? Black people are much more foundational to what the United States became than Jewish people. In Europe, that wasn't true. The Jew was the other person. Now it's more Muslim people, because basically the Holocaust kind of, quote unquote, succeeded.
So the Jews in Europe were how Europeans define themselves against the other, just like that is here. Right. When we're talking about these non-American and what it means to be a real American, here we're just traditionally we were talking about Negroes. Now we then extended it to Mexicans and Venezuelans and whatever. But traditionally,
in America, it's indigenous people, and they were really annihilated and put on reservations, and it was Black people were the two others against whom the power elite in America, and everyone wants to be part of the power elite, to find themselves. The Jews were never as central to the story of the United States. Just as the Irish, even though they were also oppressed in the 19th century, were never as central as indigenous people or Black people. Those two groups are the true other. In the way, in the United Kingdom, the Irish were the true other. In continental Europe, Jews were the true other. They're not in the United States. So that's just what I think a lot of Jews are interpolating a European.
They're mapping on the European conception of Jewish identity to America, where that has literally never been the case for the Jewish people here. We had Black people and indigenous Native Americans here. We didn't need to otherize the Jews.
This is what is somewhat clumsily referred to as whiteness, right? Like, there's problems with that term, but like what is meant by that ultimately is that indigenous people and Black people to some degree cannot be fully assimilated into the dominant form. Now that's changing, right? Barack Obama is a transitional figure, and it might be different in the future. But for the majority of American history, and I would argue still today, even though it's obviously not 1860 or even 1960, that there is still a barrier. This is why race still operates in the United States to the ordinary indigenous person or the ordinary Black person being fully welcomed into quote unquote white society in the way that an Irish or an Italian or a Jewish person or a Pole are unmarked in white society. Now, I think class still operates, obviously, but race does operate. And I'm not a leftist who thinks race doesn't operate. Race still operates in the United States in a genuine border-making way. Now, if you're rich enough, it doesn't quite operate.
Doesn't matter,
much, right? Like there were certain like places on the LeBron or Barry Obama,
or Henry Louis Gates,
or Michael Jordan, or Kevin Hart, right? Sure. They have transcended, but the ordinary person still has not, is what I would say. And they also haven't transcended 100%, but a pretty significant degree. Let's be honest. So that's interesting, right? That wasn't always true. In 1950, an Obama couldn't have happened. No, probably in 1980, an Obama couldn't have happened, right? So it is a big shift in our lifetimes, but race still operates big time. And again, the Jews don't map on to the foundational American racial divide.
So yeah, you just completely basically discredited the notion. But it's like you're doing it in just like an understanding of our country. I just think just empirically, you don't even have to know all of that shit to know that.
Yeah, I moved through the world as a white guy, dude. I did not move through the world as a Jewish guy.
Happened here.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just different. Yeah.
It's different. But can you just explain that thought that just
well, the Holocaust is not that long. I mean, it's literally that simple. It's not crazy long. It's not 300 years ago, right? It's not quite in living memory. But Joe Biden was alive during the Holocaust, right?
Yeah,
he was
crazy.
Free, but he was alive during the Holocaust. But he was alive.
Right? That's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, again, as you get more and more literal temporal time difference from the Holocaust, that sort of argument will go away. But if you think someone like Sheryl Sandberg, her grandparents could have been survivors, right? And if her parents were old, even her parents could have been survivors.
Yeah.
Right? So that, I think it's just explained through that. There's this historical memory. It wasn't that long ago, even though I think it doesn't operate here in the way it did in Nazi Germany, obviously.
Yeah, no, I feel it because, before this conflict bubbled up 2 years ago, I wasn't conscious of how many Jewish people were in my life. I just did. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You don't think about this shit on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Move through as white, mostly, right?
For sure. But also, I just don't think of them as such and such from my job. Jewish person. It just never registered. But then, in the immediate aftermath on social media, DB, I was like, damn, I didn't even realize you was Jewish. Because, it became this thing on social where I was just like, oh, shit, I'm really actually connected to a lot of Jewish people. And I really haven't spent a lot of time thinking about any of this shit.
Well, the media, I mean, the Jews are in the culture industry in this country. They're in intellectual fields, and not just, I don't not by any stretch saying Jews are in the media, but Jews are very educated and they tend to work in culture industries, whether you're talking academia, media, authorship, et cetera, et cetera. There are historical reasons for that. That we don't need to get into, but in a media job, you're going to encounter Jewish people for a variety of reasons, but you don't identify them because whiteness operates here in a particular way. And I think that's what you were experiencing there.
Yeah. So anyway, man, I'm so happy that you could it's important, I think, again, because for me, I was having a conversation the other day with somebody who's close to me in my life, and they were like, yeah, I just don't think I could talk to somebody who isn't anti-Zionist, right? I'm like, even if they're Jewish? And they're like, nah, I can't fuck with them, right? And this is a non-Jewish person. And I'm like, I personally can't go there, right? Especially for a thought, it's a thought crime to me.
Yeah.
I disagree with you vehemently. Now, if somebody was chilling in America, joined the IDF, went and slaughtered a bunch of Palestinians and came back, yeah, I probably won't get beers with you anymore.
Yeah, well, that's honest, a different story. Yeah.
Yo, you really locked into this in a way, and you've actually committed crimes in a way that I'm just I'm kind of good, but
you're not down with war crimes.
I can't. That's kind of my line. War crimes is a line.
No, man, fair enough.
The whistleblower that was working for the fake humanitarian aid thing, Latin dude, and he was like, "Yo, they shot a freaking little kid who we just gave some food to in the head."
Yeah,
like literally
who kissed him. Yeah, who kissed
like
his
literally,
hand. Yeah.
They shot him in the head, bro. Like, yeah. You went and did that type of shit. Yeah, I'm
mean,
out.
even people, I think, and just very quickly, Glenn Lowry always talks to John McWhorter, right? And on a recent episode, even John McWhorter, who's been staunchly pro-Israel, he's like, yeah, like at this point,
out, man.
It's undeniable, what's happening. So the tide is turning, I think. I think the tide genuinely is turning. Finally, but finally.
I want to tie that into my guy, Michael Brooks, who brought us together for sure. Like I said at the top of the show, a founding woke pro, definitely his idea and his whole project, to be honest, which the further I get away from his death in our time that we spent together, the more I'm like, I have an even better understanding of what this guy was trying to do. And in terms of even me, when he met me, I was just a dorky, fucking libtard, Obama loving, idiot.
He was really good at that, by the way. Like that was his special talent. Just in knowing him personally, as you did, he was really good at that. That was something on a one-to-one way, very good at persuading people.
And it's just one question at a time.
Yeah. He had a talent for that.
He just had one question at a time, asking you to interrogate. I remember, man, to just go down memory lane. I could tell that he wasn't a big Colts fan. And two things. One, he was like, "What do you like about Ta-Nehisi Coates?" And I was like, man, there's something cathartic about reading in the pages of the Atlantic. Basically, white people can be so fucking garbage, bro.
The white people are like, give me more.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I love it. Let me
self-flagellation is crazy. That's a different story. But for me personally, reading an esteemed author, somebody who's this exalted in the culture, and
great stylist too.
Oh my God, beautiful prose, bro.
Yeah, really good
Just
good writer.
A great writer. I was just like, man, it's just you just feel good to read that, because so much of the conversation when you grow up is the opposite of that. It's no, only black people have the capacity to be garbage and trash and annoying and all of this other stuff, right? And then I'll never forget what he said to me after that. He was like, "But that's not politics." He's like, "That's I don't hate Coates, but he's not political. He's not taking a side.
Right.
It's just catharsis." And I was like, "Man, that's a good point." And I was like, "You're right."
Yes, smart.
I was like, "That is pretty. That's an astute observations." Just for me, he was just like, "What do you like? No, tell me, what do you like about this shit?" And I was like, "Bro, it just feels good, bro. To be honest, it feels like somebody's saying something that is not allowed to be said." And of course, Coates becomes the most beloved white writer. I mean, probably of my lifetime. I don't know that there's ever been a writer as exalted as that dude. But it was just that was his project ultimately. And that thing that I explained to you about my conservative Jewish homies who are still pretty Zionist people, I'm sorry, I don't see them as devils. I think they're wrongheaded in their support, but I just don't see it like that. And I think that was a Mike project, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, politics, at least in a democracy, is theoretically about persuading people. And I mean, some people you do write off, like a Ben Shapiro. I don't feel the need to try to persuade him, but a lot of people are winnable, and to just write them off is anti-political, not even apolitical, anti-political to a significant degree.
How often are you getting browbeat about your views from family members and stuff like that?
They prefer we don't talk about it. Yeah, it's a sore spot, to say the least.
It's a sore spot. It's a sore spot. So we're not doing that at Thanksgiving. And
I don't feel the need to do that.
I love that. Danny, man, thank you so much for coming on today. Obviously, if you're listening to this, like I said, you need to be subscribed to American Prestige. It's not even an option. Him and Derek are making us smarter with every single freaking episode. And I'm not just saying that because DB is one of my closest homies in the world. So thank you again for coming on, bro.
Thanks, Wos. Really appreciate it.
All right, that's our show. Again, become a Patreon, patreon.com/countthedings to support what we do. I don't know the next time we're going to do this, but I will be circulating and populating other CTD properties, man, in the very immediate future. So that's our show, man. We're out. Peace.